What is consent?
Oh, okay. Whoa. Flipping the legal knowledge.
Approval. Permission.
Consent in what terms?
Did you consent to do this interview?
I do consent to this interview, so but if let's say I do not.
Thank you. Hello. Ken.
Saying yes.
We can't just say yes. Yes doesn't mean consent. Just because someone says yes doesn't mean they're 100% willing to do whatever you want.
Period.
Consent is if someone agrees to do the sexual act without any coercion or external influence such as alcohol.
If I give consent, am I allowed to change my mind?
Absolutely, you're allowed to change your mind.
You should always be allowed to change your mind.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if it's not a legal document, of course you can.
And I mean, the consent can be like taken away at any point. So
Yes,
you can always stop
yes.
in the middle and say that you're not comfortable with something.
And the other person has to
Agree.
agree.
Yeah.
Can I drop this mic? Boom. Exactly.
What is consent? Yes. Get it? Consent is agreeing to a sexual activity, or agreeing to anything in general, actually. Let's talk about how consent is defined by the law. There are many cases that can affect how the law understands consent, but what you need to know is that consent needs to be given freely, voluntary, and most importantly, actively to count. If at any point you change your mind or if you don't feel comfortable, say so. Section 90 of the Penal Code states that consent is not counted if the consent is given by a person who is either under fear of injury or wrongful restraint, or is under a misconception of fact or a lie, and the person doing the act knows the only reason that you consented is because they lied. Now, additionally, and I personally did not learn this until last year, but if alcohol or drugs are involved, you cannot legally consent to any sexual activity because you are not able to understand the nature and consequence of that action that you're giving consent to, which is great because that means anytime I have had a drink, it doesn't count. And to all the young people out there, anyone under the age of 16, yeah, you are not legally able to give consent, okay? Don't care how old you think you are or how old you want to look. Your makeup skills are great, sister, but you can't give consent. And remember, silence is not consent. Objections can also be implied from context in the relationships of those involved, also through body language and even just shaking your head. Everyone has the right to say no at any point, and consent to some acts does not equal consent to all acts, yeah? A person may consent to sex at one point, but may change their mind later on. For me personally, we were taught about consent in school, and we just kind of like sat there and it was really awkward because we were like 12 years old and we were like, okay, we can say no, wait. And all these years later, there are so many situations in the past I knew I should have said no to, but I didn't because I just wasn't used to practicing it. So practice giving consent.
It has to be a verbal yes or in written or any form.
We got your verbal and your written consent to be here.
Yeah.
And the next time I'm going to get down and dirty, I'm going to pass them a form and be like, can you please sign this form before getting down and dirty with me? I'm inspired.